Hey, this is Thomas's Coffee Chat. Let's welcome Zach Diaz.
Thank you. 안녕하세요.
Hey, Zach, welcome to Crafton. This is the first episode of Coffee Chat with you. I don't know, it's the first time that we're doing it, so I don't know what to expect.
Me either. That's the exciting part.
Right. But what we want to know is actually we want to just go through a little bit of your maybe some fun areas of your storyline of your lifestyle and then what you have gone through and then maybe something that you could actually let us know why you have joined Crafton and what is all this about Crafton Creator Network and why is it so important?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so let's start with you. That your name Diaz is really not a typical white last name, right?
Correct.
So do you have a multiple different heritage?
I do.
Background?
I know this is a quintessential American answer, but I'm everything but. I am Mexican on my dad's side.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So he has Mexican heritage, and then on my mom's side, I'm Irish, Scottish, and German. So I have a lot of European, but of course the last name Diaz.
But your dad is 100% Mexican.
No, he is like half, and then his grandparents came from Mexico prior to that.
Okay.
But it, 3 generations after, we are as American as can be. But growing up in California, having a last name of Diaz, very common.
Yes, it's very common indeed. Yes, it's very common indeed. But first name Zachary. For those people who are not English speaker, pronunciation of J versus Z is different.
It's very,
right?
Yes.
But I think most of the Koreans will actually call you Jack with a J.
Yes.
But what is the correct pronunciation of your name then?
Correct pronunciation is Zach.
Zach.
Yes.
Not Jack.
Not Jack, but I take it very earnestly. Everyone, if you try, that's okay. If you can't get it right, I want to try to get everyone else's names correct. So, it's a two-way street.
So we need to call you Zach.
Zach.
All right. Zach it is.
Yes.
All right. So where were you born? I mean, if you are Mexican, heritage, you are not born in and raised in California.
So
but I think that there's somewhere in Louisiana.
Yes.
This is here, right?
This is the interesting part, is I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, California, like in the heart of LA, actually, in a downtown hospital. But my whole family is from Louisiana. Every single, my brother and my sister were both born in Louisiana. My mom was born there, and my dad lived there from when he was very young. They moved to LA for a job opportunity right before I was born. I think what's really interesting is, especially growing up in LA, you actually are around a lot of different communities of color, marginalized groups, everything like that. But I was raised in an area that is known for being, formerly Mexican in the context of Southern California. There were so many different communities. I learned very early on that not everybody lives like I do. Not everybody has the same experience that I do. I have it very lucky in LA, but also I could have lived in New Orleans. I could have lived somewhere else and had a very different life. So it was a very eye-opening experience.
Okay. You talked about the diversity of the culture, but was there any particular moment in your lifetime that Asian culture maybe was shocking to you, or maybe it gave you some different learning that you haven't necessarily seen from the Western culture that you can remember?
Oh, absolutely. When I was very young in this elementary school, I was learning Japanese, and I was able to go on some exchange programs where I would go to Japan for a summer and stay with a family in Japan. We were their family was in Nagoya, and then they would come back, or their son would come back with me and do the exchange program. So we got to, do a cultural exchange. And while I was out there, one of the first things that I noticed was they were still in school. And I went into school, and we were the same age, but they were so far ahead of me in math and science and everything. We were way behind. The second thing was just how much more polite and respectful the culture was. in the context of there's a lot of hierarchical sort of communication, and there's a deference to people who have been at the company longer or are older in the family and things like that. And it was similar to the way that I was raised in Southern culture, but in the West Coast, in California and America, it's like everyone for themselves. You know, you have to make your own way. You have to do everything by yourself. I remember being, 7 or 8 years old in a small town, Nagoya, and I had really blonde hair and blue eyes, and I spoke Japanese with a pretty decent Japanese accent because I learned from so young. And so many people were so impressed and so surprised. And I realized, again, we have this opportunity to connect with each other, and just being a little bit willing to lean into another person's culture or see the world from their perspective, it goes so long towards saying, you know what, we might not be the same person, we might not come from the same background, but you're trying. And so being exposed to that very young, I learned what it was like. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes is the typical phrase. It's just, how does somebody else experience this world? And I loved it ever since.
Okay. Any Japanese girlfriend when you were young?
Never had a Japanese girlfriend.
Oh, any girls actually falling in love with a blonde man?
I was too young to experience it then, but it was such a important experience because here's where I get to my secret was I remember being into Pokemon very early, and I could get cards from Japan earlier than anyone else.
You can get it from US, right?
And because I could speak Japanese too, I could translate them, and I was able to play and win a lot early on in Pokemon. And again, it was an insight into, if you spend your time studying, if you work hard, you can actually gain an advantage in, even though it was just card games. But it led me to understand that, if I put effort in, I can see a reward later on.
No, I see. Okay. Very interesting. And then you actually, after college, you joined Twitch at the very early stage of Twitch. How did that come about?
So I had been, obviously, like many people, into gaming my entire life, and I was working for a esports agency called Good Game. They actually sponsored a bunch of StarCraft 2 players. So I was just working with them, covering esports, interviewing players, staying up until, 3 a.m. West Coast time to watch the GSL here in Korea or anything like that. And they were very successful at running their business that Twitch acquired them. I basically thought this was the future. I wanted to apply for a job at Twitch, and it just so happened that there was a junior level role. I wanted to apply for it. They referred me. And I look back at that point in my life as the right place at the right time to join Twitch, be a part of Amazon when everybody wanted to be involved in gaming and esports and the revolutions that have happened since then. I was very lucky, but that was a point at which I learned so much about this industry and now, where we have been in the last 10 years.
I mean, everybody knows how important Twitch is in the ecosystems of the gaming, and then how they became so big. But at the early years of Twitch, if you could summarize the culture of Twitch in maybe one or two vocabulary or sentences, what would that be? What was it like at the beginning, early days of Twitch?
The two phrases that stick in my mind and I still try to emulate in the places that I go now are, everything is your job. That is one of them, which is to say that when you are a customer or you're a consumer of a good, a service, a product, they don't see that there's a difference between engineering and design and product managers and quality analysts and all of these different roles. They just see the thing that they are paying for, the thing that they're using. The second one is that putting the creator first is how Twitch guided itself to success in the creator economy. It was really difficult in the early days when there were actually a lot of competitors to Twitch. The difference was we always knew that if we put the creator first, they would put their audience first, and that's how we reached the most amount of people with the most amount of success.
Okay. I'm not sure whether when you were in Twitch you knew this or not, but There was a company called Africa TV.
Africa. Oh, yes.
Back in Korea.
Yes.
They also similarly grew their businesses based on the gaming.
Yes.
Influencers. Has Twitch ever paid attention to Africa TV and what they were doing?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was very lucky to know some of the original team that were responsible for community relations and creator relations here in Korea. And just like there's a cultural context to how you want to make sure your games are marketed, we knew that the Korean streamer ecosystem was much more developed than it was in the US. And so we were not just competing against the fact that Africa and a couple of other platforms were more ahead in securing like exclusive broadcast rights to esports events, but the creators had much bigger followings on those platforms, and those audiences felt comfortable on Africa. You know, Twitch was a foreign culture to them. And so it was a real big struggle of how do we compete there? How do we not just pay lots of money to be more successful? I remember one of the biggest things to happen was when we finally got Faker to stream on Twitch once. And everybody at Twitch, all of our employees wanted to take a picture with Faker.
I have to ask this question. Did Twitch pay Faker?
Oh, yeah.
To stream on okay.
I don't know the numbers, and for a long time, Twitch was against paying creators. Exactly. But I think that especially as we understood the power and the impact, it was a question of, is this going to be ROI positive? Can we justify it? And also, in some contexts, even if it wasn't ROI positive, just from those numbers, it was about saying, we understand how important Faker is to this community or other creators. Sometimes it's about saying, we value you. Yeah, because Ninja, back in the day, Ninja was very famous in Twitch. Yes.
And Microsoft Mixer, not sure whether you recall that service or not, they wanted to compete against Twitch. They came with a big financial number and they decided to pay Ninja to be exclusive on the Mixer, which is failed miserably. But you know, a lot of times when you actually have somebody who actually want to take it away from the platform, you gotta do it. But Twitch came into Korea trying to compete against Africa, and then they failed.
Yes.
And then they decided to basically fold the businesses and they actually get out of Korea.
Yep.
Why was that? I mean, were you there at the Twitch at the time when this decision was made?
I was not at Twitch at the time that it was made. As far as I understand it, it was just that it was becoming too expensive to serve locally compared to what local Korean companies were able to provide in infrastructure, bandwidth, like management of technological costs. And so this is a big question because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Twitch is owned by Amazon.
That's right.
The biggest, web service provider.
Amazon is very disciplined on making financial decisions. Yeah.
And they are not afraid to say, this actually isn't generating revenue or profit, and we will, back out of it. It has happened in other countries as well. Korea is the most well-known, but we had similar plans for expansion in India, and Twitch had backed away from India for a long time too.
So Faker couldn't help.
Couldn't seal the deal, and that's tough. That's probably on us. We could have been better about it. Faker, always great.
If you think back, there's a similarity between Mixer paying Ninja to boost their services and Twitch paying Faker to boost their services, and at the end of the day, both them failed. So what that means is that growth, a lot of times numbers seems to suggest that you gotta pay somebody to be able to grow.
Yeah.
But that growth is really not organic. And if it is not organic growth, a lot of times it can't sustain.
It's not sustainable. You know what? Maybe we can't keep our top creators forever. They're going to, have different interests. Their life is going to come through and they're going to want to start a family or pursue a different career. We should be ready for them to step away from content, and there will be another creator, another community that will step in its place and fill that void. I've seen it on all of these platforms trying to figure out, how do we create the next, I mean, generally the next question is the next Ninja, even though that's so long ago now, is it, how do we create the next superstar?
So you closed one chapter of your life with the Twitch.
Yes.
And then decided to join a Chinese company, TikTok.
TikTok.
Where I think that if I recall correctly, at the time when you joined, it was at the beginning of TikTok in US.
Yes.
It wasn't really far advanced like now,
Yeah.
right? Why did you decide a big company like Twitch and then join a little Chinese-owned company called TikTok at the time?
It was such a difficult decision for me because I had so much tenure and success at Twitch, but TikTok was recruiting for a live specific sort of project, and they were offering me the opportunity to build a team and a strategy from the ground up. And I realized that I could stay at Twitch and continue just with the same path that I had been on, or start over, start fresh, build my own team with my own strategy and philosophy. And this was maybe a year and a half after COVID had started. So there was already so much changing with the way that people were consuming content. And I wasn't afraid of working with a small Chinese company. What I was afraid of was disappointing the people who had expected me to stay at Twitch forever.
Okay. If I know TikTok correctly, TikTok, even though is a global, very popular in US services, but company itself is very Chinese.
Very Chinese.
So was there any cultural shift? Because Twitch is all American based, actually.
Twitch is all American based, and even when you thought you were doing something local, you had to adhere to Amazon's policies and things like that. And the inverse is true with TikTok, where there was a lot of challenge in the fact that when I was working there, there was so much concern around data privacy and policy and things like that. But even when it wasn't concerning privacy policy or legal questions, we had to adhere to the Chinese standard. And there was a lot of expectations that what was going to be successful in the US was what was successful in China. We should copy their methods, copy their strategies. And I think that if you were to ask anyone, can you replicate a strategy from Korea to the US? The answer is probably no.
Right. Context is all different.
Context is super important. TikTok, where I worked at the live side, was reporting into China. So we weren't even reporting into the American team. And so when we wanted to do American specific marketing, we had to convince our peers who we sat right next to that they could invest in us, that they could trust us, because it felt like we were working for a different company in China. If you signed up for it, that was okay, but I think a lot of people had a lot of different expectations on the US side.
I see. And also, I think if you kind of think about it back, that's when the rise of the short form was beginning to take off.
Yes.
And Twitch, if you think about it, that's a very long form oriented, very, very long form.
Yes.
Completely opposite short form video. Nobody knew at the time that it's going to actually take off.
Yes.
And many of the gaming content will be actually retaped or edited to a short form to be able to start taking off. So were you surprised by the new trends, or did you, when you actually get to TikTok, was there part of the strategy to be able to just go forward with the short form, or was there anything that is actually designed by the company?
It was very much a well-known fact that long form at Twitch was successful because it developed this culture of engagement, of continuing to promote, really high quality entertainment. And that was at the discretion of the creator choosing what kind of content to make. TikTok's entire strategy was the users, the consumer's preference will dictate which creator and which content is successful. So it was actually a complete pivot where a creator could do all of the work necessary to make funny content, entertaining content, but if it didn't use the right hashtags, if it wasn't uploaded at the right day, if it wasn't at the right moment, the algorithm decided. And the most interesting component is so many creators who were focusing on long-form Twitch content or even long-form YouTube content didn't see TikTok as valuable, but it was the most successful growth engine.
Right.
You could take any long-form content, edit it short form, 10 seconds, and all you had to do was say, oh, this was a funny joke, I want to watch this creator more. And you created this really successful feedback loop that said the creators get your engaging content, they follow you, they, interact with your comments, then more people see that because the algorithm promotes you more. And I think it gave us particularly this understanding that creators are really sensitive to how the platforms change, how the ecosystems change. And you saw that because YouTube implemented YouTube Shorts, Instagram did Reels. They all wanted to copy the success of TikTok and pushed into short form content.
I see. Did TikTok ever attempt to sign the creators like what Twitch did, try to do?
They didn't, at least from what we were doing in the US. I think they were also very spend averse. They were willing to share revenue.
That's right.
But the outright
based on the advertising.
Based on advertising, and they really wanted to promote the live commerce.
Right.
But they didn't see any successful examples of paying for content exclusively. As you had mentioned, everybody could tell that Mixer wasn't successful with their attempts.
Right.
And even YouTube had invested quite a bit into some exclusive contracts, never went anywhere. It remains a successful platform, but not because of those, despite those.
Right. Okay. And then now to Crafton.
Yes.
So after spending years at early days of Twitch and then also TikTok when they are starting to come into US, Crafton also was a successful gaming company, but in a way, brand new start on the creator program, KCN.
Yeah.
What was attractive to you that you're changing the industry because you've been on the creator side of the platforms and now it's actually to the gaming company.
Yes.
Why this change?
One of the most interesting moments was thinking about what other game companies, whether a publisher or developer, had successful creator programs, and there weren't too many examples. I think it's really easy to be on the outside and think, oh, there's natural ways in which publishers and developers should work with creators, but there's a real challenge in making sure that all of the moving parts of a publisher and a developer and the ways that games are produced can align with creators if there's intentionality behind how that program is designed, how the business is modeled, and the way that the strategy is executed. So I thought about it for a long time, and I realized maybe there's a chance to approach it from this perspective of, can we value the creator and design a program that brings them in as a partner?
If I could actually say that in different way, usually the creator involvement in the gaming studio perspective is paid creator. Right?
Yes.
As we all talk about it. Yes. You find whoever creator who has a lot of followers in the particular genre of your game.
Yeah.
And then you go out and talk to them and say, hey, I'll pay you a certain amount of money and why don't you get the content?
Right.
But as you said before, in the early days of Twitch and whatnot, that paid content economy didn't really work.
It didn't.
What is so special about KCN that you think that will be able to make that transition successful?
I think there are two main points that actually highlight why KCN is so valuable to these creators. The first is the scale at which we do have automation allows many more creators to join. There isn't really a limit to the number of creators that we can support. So there's the scale, but there's also a direct performance relationship between KCN doesn't have to pay if the creator isn't successful. And so the reality is the incentive is aligned for this creator to do more content, innovative content, to find what's special to them about it. And so the point is these creators can come in and make content at their own pace, whether they are on Twitch or YouTube, they're on TikTok or Instagram Reels or wherever they might be. The point is we're not going to tell you how to make content. We actually say we would just want to give you the tools and let you make sure that we're right there with you on the journey.
Okay. Now, we opened the KCN about a couple months ago at the time of the Enjoy launch.
Yes.
I heard that there are more than 4,000 people had tried to register, but because it goes through several steps to be able to verify your own identity. So the funnels come down and there's probably a few 600 or 700 people finally got registered. So those people have participated in the Enjoy campaign. Any success stories?
There are quite a few success stories. I think that some of my favorite are we've been able to pay out revenue on this commission share to these creators, and that's the whole goal. But one of the most insightful moments was when we realized some of these creators were making more money from KCN than they were making from their platform of choice. So the revenue that they made from KCN in 1 month was bigger than the revenue they had made from their Twitch or their YouTube channel. The second success was where these creators were coming from that we assumed was going to be the Enjoy target markets. There were actually creators from Thailand and from Poland who had performed extremely well, at a sort of an outlier position. And we realized it was because those creators either had a workshop done for them where they learned about KCN in really intimate detail, or they were incentivized again by creating content in those countries. There's usually less of an ad revenue share or less of a monetization, whereas KCN offers a really good incentive towards creating content. So they're more inclined to create that content. And then the third is this core focus of micro and mid-sized creators. I think it's really easy to assume a marketing campaign that involves creators should focus on the biggest creators that you can see. But what we have found so far, and will continue to find in each month that we review the data, is that actually smaller creators perform better. There's many different hypotheses as to why that is true, but the one thing that is apparent is that a smaller creator can talk more authentically to their audience about the benefits of the game. And so when we have these communities that can localize the content, regionalize the language, make sure that they're speaking to their audience, they just seem to be better ambassadors for the game than just relying on paid campaigns.
Great. Have you spoken to any creator?
I have. I've actually spoken to quite a few creators, and one of the creators that I spoke with, she actually asked, she was like, is there a way in which I can get more data from KCN about my supporters? Because these are the creators that are, building their own businesses, and they want to say, I have 10 creators or 10 supporters, 100 supporters, 500 supporters. That's really influential towards my sponsors and my brand affiliates. So we're even thinking of more ways we can share data and build these pipelines that make these creators successful. Just because, again, if that creator goes off and becomes a superstar, we want to be a part of that journey.
Okay. So if you look at your life, the blonde, blue eyes, white in the Japanese school, early days, overcoming the cultural differences, early days of Twitch when it was just coming through, and then there was something unique that nobody really paid attention to at the beginning.
Yeah.
But you joined, and then you actually grew with the company.
Yeah.
TikTok, when it was a still very new Chinese company that are actually making advancements in US. Seems like every single one of your major experiences, you joined at the very early days and just seen the tremendous growth happening afterwards.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of the KCN will be if you kind of saying that this is a perfect, successful program this will be?
I think there are two cases that I imagine being the success cases, one of which is a magnificent Cinderella story of a creator who was able to achieve an amount of success that they would have never predicted, never dreamed in their life. We really see that as one of the core foundations that we want to approve. And then internally, there's also this chance where I think KCN should be the underlying infrastructure for the ways that studios think about how do we want to interact with creators. You might have a very particular strategy and a very particular idea about the ways in which the community and the creators will interact with your game. The Craft and Creator Network can power that. It can be an engine for you. And I would love to see at least one use of KCN in every single game. Those are the two where we're already seeing some examples of those, but I want to see that all over the world in every language. I think that would really be the start of the dream and continuing on into the future.
Okay, this is the final question. So if you have one thing that you want to ask publishing teams or any of the studio members who are preparing their next upcoming games, if you want them to be able to actually consider KCN and saying that this is the reason why that is important, what will be the one thing that you will ask them to do?
I think the one question that I would ask them to do is think about when you have a successful strategy that involves one creator, what's the next step when 100 more, 1,000 more, 100,000 more in 100 different languages want to be there just like that one creator you worked with. KCN has this unique opportunity to look at your creator strategy, build a successful campaign around what happens when the next 100 come knocking on the door, or 1,000 or 10,000 come knocking on the door. How can we help you scale? The power of creators is that they can reach into communities that we never could as Crafton. And so we should think about how can we leverage them as partners. And if your strategy involves KCN in that, I think it's going to be a recipe for success.
Great. I think tonight we're gonna have the dinner with the 삼겹살 and soju.
Yes.
So have you enjoyed it? Have you been introduced?
I have enjoyed soju. I have enjoyed a couple of different, types of Korean, both cuisine and liquor, and I'm really looking forward to just celebrating with the team. Honestly, this has been the best part of my time here in Korea while I was here for the workshop, and this week has just been seeing all of the work be celebrated by each other. There's so many people doing so much good work. I feel like I am one part of a very big team, and I could not be more excited.
Okay, great. 삼겹살 and soju that is.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Zach, for your good time.
Thank you so much. 감사합니다.
Okay, bye.